Hi, and welcome to episode 1 of my solo game development journey. I'm a developer who's been working in games for the last 10 years or so, looking to, for the first time, take a solo project from just blank sheet of paper to release product into a hopefully commercially viable solo development business. And I'm going to bring you along, both through these videos and through my live stream. In this first video, I'm going to be taking you through my own personal design philosophy and applying that to the idea that I came up with for this first project. So first, let's do the dev vlog part. Let's get that out of the way. What game am I going to be making? What was the initial few days of design process going from blank sheet? What did I end up with? Then we can look at the rules, these 3 rules that I have, and see how they compare to the idea that I came up with. So let's look at my little notebook where I've written my elevator pitch for the game. The working title for the game is The Unfortunate Life of Morrow Higgs, a Groundhog Day situation where you have a narrative chance game where every decision is on the roll of the dice. Explore a medieval village and find your own way through the day. So that's the game. It's a game where every decision you have is normally a very simple yes or no choice, and that choice is on the dice, and the dice have varying odds depending on what items you have, what have you done previously, what's, various things. But we don't want to go into that too detailed. What are the 3 pillars, in my opinion, of good game design? First one, which is very key, is limitations. Limitation is the breeding ground for creativity. With a blank sheet of paper, unlimited budget, unlimited time, it's actually quite hard to come up with a great idea, in my opinion. So the first thing, of course, is scope. How long do you have to make this game? How many people do you have working on it? That will set how big or wide your design can be. The second one, which is very much linked to scope, is your skill set. I think that any process of design, especially if it's a new project, you'll need to learn something new. There'll be something in the design or the programming or somewhere that isn't something that you can go, oh, that's going to be that. I know exactly how I'm going to do that already. I understand that. The skills I have, great. But you don't want to select an idea where everything is a new experience. You've got to think about, what are my skills? What can I currently do? What do I know how to do? And how do I make my game within those, where some of the things might be unknown, some of the things you might need to learn, but that process isn't going to be so frictional because you don't know anything. The next one is platform. I think if you go out to make a game and you say, I'm going to make it for PC and Xbox and PlayStation and Switch and mobile and VR, unless you're doing a 10-year scope with a big team, there's just no way you can make that. And no way you can make that really special and good. I think set your platform first, which will set your control inputs, set the kind of genres that work and don't work, set the tone of the game. These things will make your design process much easier if you make that decision early on. For me in this project, it's very easy. I'm going to be working on PC, it's going to be a short dev time, and I know what my skills are, So based on those first 3 points, we've got a very clear idea of my scope, which I've set at about 8 weeks of development time, not including marketing and release process. I'm going to worry about that later on. I'm going to focus on the design first. So 8 weeks for development. My skill set, I'm a design background, some programming knowledge, some art knowledge, and I'm very good at level design and level building and environment set dressing, but not so good on asset creation, not so good at deep complex systems in terms of programming, and I'm not good at yet the combat, fast-paced design style. So I'm a more slow designer. I'm better at designing slower, narrative, funny things. So that's why I've chosen the game I have. The last part of your design limitations, which is your main first pillar for any idea that needs to go through this checklist, is your personal design motif. What is the theme? What is the genre? What is something about your game that you are really excited to explore design-wise? For me in this one, it's the concept of chance, the concept of choices. I really want to make a game that looks at both the D&D dice chance style of game, as well as the modernized gambling gacha style of game. It's a theme that I find really interesting at the moment in games, is how do people play with the concept of chance, and how can we make that a fun experience and integral to everything in the game? The second pillar of design, in my opinion, is going to be figuring out what the fun is. A lot of people, when they approach design, go, well, I'll make a game and I'll make a prototype and I'll give it to my players and we'll see what they enjoy and we'll make that bit as fun as possible. We'll make sure that they enjoy the bit that they're enjoying and we focus on that bit once we figure out what they like. But I think that that's the wrong way to go about it. I think that for any sort of design, you need to take what is the fun as your first point of call, and then set that as your touchstone. Set that as every time you try and implement a new feature, you check it against your design limitations, and then you check it against your what is the fun. Is it going to help or hinder the fun? If you've got an advanced tactical shooter that is all about reaction speed and positioning and all these sort of things, if you then try and add a silly achievement system, is that going to add or take away from that fun of that game? You might sound, oh, it's really fun because it juxtaposes the design of the tactical shooter by having a silly achievement system that promotes playing in weird ways. But I would argue that for a lot of people, it would actually hinder that fun experience of being a proper tactical shooter. This is something you have to look back at with scope. If you're developing a game for 10 years and you're planning to make it over 10 years, you have more chance for genre blending, breaking molds, doing weird things. But if you're on a very tight scope, it's always best to distill down to what is the fun and how do I make that shine. That word I use is very important because that is the core of the third design pillar, which is distill your design. Make sure that whenever you implement a new feature, that it is helping the game, not flattening the design. There's a common thing in game design where people think that more features creates a more immersive experience, whereas I think that is probably not the case for a lot of games. I think for a lot of games, having depth to your design is much more important. Having a single feature that people can really learn and interact with and understand deeply and use that as your touchstone for everything else in the game, I think that's often what creates more interesting design and more interesting experiences, especially in the indie space. Now, those two things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. You can have lots of features and also have depth, but it comes back to, again, your skills and your scope. If you're trying to make a game in a week, you can't have a broad set of features that are also all really deep and all explored. It's just not possible. And so you need to think about all those things as a sort of ladder. First, does this feature that you're trying to add to your game pass your initial design limitations? Is it within scope? Is it within your skill set? Is it something that you can actually do? Next, is it aiding the fun of the game? Is the fun of the game helped by adding this feature? And then last but not least, does this dilute the experience and flatten it, or does it make it deeper, more interesting? Those are my three pillars of design. So I've got a basic game idea. It's passed through all these pillars of design. Has it passed perfectly? No. There are features in there that aren't necessarily within my skill set. There are things that I'm going to have to learn and figure out along the way. But it's a game that I'm excited by. At the end of the day, that's what's important, especially as a solo dev who's going to be exploring ideas and making games mainly for my own pleasure. So that's the key last point, is that all of this doesn't matter if you're not excited by your design. Next time, we're going to be looking at the design documentation process. So taking this loose, sketchy Miro board kind of idea of different things and going, okay, how do we distill these down into key ideas and key concepts and how we can actually implement them into the game. So if you want to see that process live, join the stream, subscribe. If not, I'll see you in the next video. Have a lovely day or night or morning, wherever you are, and